and welcome to Pentalog from Pentalog, where we bring you discussions about the tools and techniques you can use to survive and thrive in the post-COVID-19 era. Today we have two guests. Our first guest is Cornel Fatulescu, who's coming to us from Orléans in France. He's going to speak to us about something called low code, which is an ingenious way to save time and money and increase reliability when you're building new applications. After Cornel, we're going to hear from Aurelia Tudor, who's going to speak to us about remote recruiting. We'll be right back after this little bit of music. Hi, I'm Peter Green in New York, and this is Pentalog from Pentalog. We're introducing what we call DEFCON 19, Tools and Strategies for Surviving and Thriving in the World of COVID-19. My first guest is Cornel Fatulescu. Cornel is the Chief Platform Officer at Pentalog, and he's here to talk with us about a program way of life called low code. It's not a language, and it's not exactly a system, but it's really a way to increase the speed and efficiency of custom programming while increasing as well the quality and drastically reducing the costs and the number of bugs. So, Cornel, welcome. It must be very nice to be in Orléans right now. I'm in New York, where there have been riots and the COVID-19 is going crazy, and we have no idea what the world is going to be throwing at us from one day to the next, which means it's a great time to be thinking in agile in IT talk. Well, as other places get ready to go back to work, we clearly know there's going to be a big uptick in demand for quick and very responsive changes to the way people are doing business. And you and I were talking earlier about low code and just how this is a great way to be much more agile with a lowercase a as you build your business and adapt your business to this new world that we're living in. So I guess the place to start is just explain to me in layman's terms, what is low code?
Thanks, Peter. Great introduction. I'll do my best, because my favorite definition about low code is capability. So meaning when you speak about low code, you speak about skills, technology, governance, methodology that comes with it, all that with the intention you've spoken about, seeking for efficiency, digital transformation, digital innovation. So it's a capability, right? So, and why we are talking so much today about it is because in our platform we are seeking for different tools. I want our customers, when they come to us, to always find whatever they need, whatever tool they need to build their products and services. And low code, it's a solution, it's a tool from this toolkit to build better your products, better serve your customers, and automate, right? And again, it comes with technology, skills, processes, the right methodology for that, and governance. Is that clear enough?
No, that makes a lot of sense. But I mean, it's more than that, right? It's how would I put it? I mean, one image that came to my mind was that working in low code is something akin to working with both Lego bricks and a 3D printer. So I wonder if you could just explain a little more concretely what we're talking about.
Yes. So in our industry, the technology industry, we've always had these two metaphors, like the Lego approach, which is basically the no-code approach, and the evolutionary architecture, more like an organic approach, like how biology works. And that's the code approach. That's the code approach.
To interrupt you for 1 second. In other words, using pre-existing building blocks and putting them together to get your result, or writing the code from the ground up, more or less, to get your result.
And those are the two extremes. Now, low code is in between, takes the best out of no code, and also from code. It allows you to write code so that you better address a wider range of needs, right? Like if you are building your front office, back office, you just want to automate stuff, low code has enough solutions, I'd say, for you to address these needs in our today's world. Now, it's not a silver bullet. There are situations where no code is much better. For example, if you speak about finding solutions to automate something for citizens who are less technical, right? So no code, it's much better there. If you say for technology and coding and all that, so that's the code and deep code, but low code, you can do both of them under certain limits. So there are different solutions. Sometimes it's better to do node code. Sometimes it's better to do low code. Sometimes it's better to do code from scratch, deep code, and so forth. And there are other options like extend SaaS services, but we are not going to do the whole landscape in these regards. Make sense?
Yeah, very much. So low code gives you a lot more flexibility, but it's also a great tool for budget control, right? Because you can, if you use low code in a sprint format, you can. Tell me about that. You can get your results and your feedback and your MVTs and things a lot quicker, right?
Yeah. So of course it depends on the set of features you want to build or the kind of app. But we've built the app in an hour, and we've throw it away during the end of the day because you just need it temporary at that scale. Or we've built an app in an hour and it's still there, right? And people are still using it. And most of the applications are built in a couple of days. And what happens, and it's interesting in this regard, is that as the cycle time is so short, people say, what, already? And they say, but I'd like it differently. So this is where real agility comes in place. And they say, can you add this? Can you do a bit more of that? And of course, it will continue to grow as a system or application. And if, depending on the journey of that process you try to digitize, it might be a never-ending story. But you get real quick feedback. You can build a prototype in a day, get feedback from your users, build your application. So even the time box of sprint sometimes tends to be like it's too big.
Yeah.
So the sprint is like the day.
Yeah.
You can have sprints of a day, but anyway, it depends also on the type of applications and what you try to do with low code. You might want to use low code, for example, to build a new application to automate a process, or you might want to replace some legacy system. And when you do that, it works great at the beginning. You build fast, and now you have a new interface everyone is happy with, but you still need to do lots of things behind the scenes that nobody sees. So you've done things, everyone is happy, but you cannot say you finished. So even if you did it in 2 weeks, you're going to work for a whole quarter doing things behind and cleaning up because there's a whole mess for years you need to catch up with. So you see, I cannot easily tell but the cycle times are definitely shorter, much shorter.
Now, can you use low code on top of existing tech infrastructures, or does it have to stand alone? Can it be integrated into what you're doing, or does it require a whole rethinking of your IT infrastructure?
Oh, low code has so many options. There are so many ways you can start with. It always has place, and that's even I say there's a danger zone there, right? Because people do low code in the enterprise without the infrastructure and the IT team being aware of it. And this is dangerous because usually you get this low code capability via different platforms. So someone makes accounts, will pay for that, and they have the budget, but the data is there. And if the chief information officer is not aware, that's a problem. So they find too many ways, I'd say, to start there's always place for low code, no matter what kind of infrastructure you have, right? And it's a danger for many organizations. They might lose control. This is why, for me, it's very important for chief information officers, technology officers, to not resist to low code, but to embrace it. I was the person who said no to low code because I've tried so many options of no code. I said, what's this low code about, right? So, but I'm an open person and I said, okay, let's give it a try. And we said, wow, is this real? And success after success. Well, we had some failures, but that's much more of complex topic. It's not the low code technology but the thing that, for example, the data is too far from where you have the platform or code, have latencies. There are things to keep into consideration, and job of an architect, it doesn't become
technology that serves the
yes.
client.
But I don't want to be misunderstood in a sense, because you can get real working with the developers together without low code. It's possible, is possible. It's just that with low code, you develop so fast. So you don't negotiate with people. We need you there because we develop something and we want to not develop more than you are capable of integrating, right? Now with low code, we are in a situation where you develop so much. These people are not able of integrating so many features. So, but working together, this kind of agility, low code, is like fish in the water. So definitely you get that. I can imagine situations when you can do low code in a specific department without working with users. So why not? It can still work in silos. Don't see any good reason to do that. So I believe my answer to that is low code can enhance agility, can make it much better, but it's not the thing that makes it agile in a sense. So makes sense what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, very much so. So, I mean, you mentioned to me some example of a Scrum Master who ended up creating a product all by himself in low code.
Yeah. So that's a great story, and I have many stories like this. So, Scrum Master, because we've spoken about agility. Now, Scrum, it's one of the most popular frameworks out there, agile framework, and there is this typical role there, which is a management role. It's the Scrum Master. So you have three roles in Scrum: product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. And the Scrum Master, what he does is basically managing impediments. So he's an efficiency manager, right? So he's not taking, it was he in this story, technical decisions, architectural decisions, not doing this in a team, right? So he's facilitating managing impediments. And we had these unique types of meetings. We said we want to increase one-on-ones, want to standardize that with people, be more flexible, database of questions, templates of one-on-ones, and things like this. Many different types of one-on-ones, and he developed that in the first week without being in full time. And there was the wow effect. You've seen the customer success manager and everyone saying, oh, you've done all that? Like in the second week, we've said, let's deploy this at scale, right? And these are the wow effects that I wish for everyone, right? Especially when this kind of topic, nobody wants to have in their backlog, right? You'd rather pay a service to do all that, but that's pretty expensive. And when you look at someone being capable of doing a much better solution for these atomic purposes in such short time, don't even have time to qualify a service to say this is what I need. You see, so how short can it get in terms of cycle time? You didn't even take the solution to buy a system or to go to a human resources talent system, and you've done it. So this for me is it's a wow effect. It's impressive. And this person was not a technical person. This is what I believe. This is where you wanted to
to go with this question. So even if you have people who know what they need, but they don't know how to get there because they're not trained in technology or development, they can be really hands-on with low code. They can be very hands-on in helping create or even in creating a product that they know is needed, but without involving lots of development time. Let me just interrupt myself for a moment. We want to take questions from our audience. If you have a question, please put it into chat, and Christelle, our producer in Bretagne, will read the question to us. So if you have any, put them in the chat, and we will be very happy to answer them. Let me go back a second, Cornel, and ask you about something about risk. A lot of companies now are facing this very uncertain environment, this very complex environment where we don't know what's coming at us. And one of the things we need to do is reduce our risk. How does using something like low code reduce your risk when you take on new programming or IT challenges?
Well, there are several ways of answering these questions. So the first one is the danger of losing control of your data when all these people tend to go to or to avoid the IT department because IT department doesn't have place in their backlog, right? So they find solutions. They need that. So that sometimes the chief marketing officer is going to do that because he needs to go fast, and the IT backlog doesn't have place for his or her needs.
Right.
So that's one side of risk. The other one is being honest. Right? So everyone is speaking about privacy by design, having control about their data, who's accessing data. But that's a very hard technical aspect of the IT department. So having that in control, it's very important. When you develop everything from scratch, it's not that you have to take care of these needs yourself. You need to check them, double check them. So when you work with low-code platforms, all these aspects are pre-built. You just make benefit from them, right? You get immediate data access management. You can have better security. You can have centralized user management. All these, you don't take care of these kind of aspects when you develop applications, and this is normal in today's world. So that's another aspect of it. And then there is also better security, right? So you are a small startup, or you have I don't know, you are maybe in even the Fortune 500. How big is your security stuff? How large is that? And then when you say look at the wide variety of skills required for a security team to do a great job, when you are honest with yourself, you say, am I really doing a good job? Because we work with developers, right, a lot. This is the essential skill most of our customers seek for, right?
Yes.
And the agility and how we embrace that and the governance that comes with it. But they seek for developers. And I tell to them, when you take developers and when we integrate them, when we onboard them, and they are onboarded on the security path, there are very few exceptions when they say, we didn't learn that much. Most of them learn a lot when we integrate them. So security is a huge body of knowledge developers don't have. It's not an implicit mindset. It's not an implicit body of knowledge. So you have 100 IT staff, size of the team, and you have 2-3 people who have security skills,
Yeah.
and then how representative and is that enough to take care of all the decisions that these 100 people
Yeah.
take every day, right?
Right.
So if you can simplify these aspects and say, don't bother with that, just reuse something which is proven, that's much better. And I'm always telling to our customers is you need to take care of where you innovate. If you what's your business model? If you are in services and you, I know, innovate there. Don't innovate in the technology. Don't innovate in the methodology, right?
Right.
You have enough energy to be great in all these fields. Maybe you can. Or 3 times before doing that.
Yeah.
If you are not a technology company, don't innovate there. Just reuse what's the best out there, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's difficult to reuse the best, but if you go to such platforms, it's easier to. You have SLAs. You can check, but these systems are proven, but by more people than you can have, right? So makes sense. But
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can
So
speak for days about it.
I
So
know I can see you're very passionate about it. But let me ask you, what about the people who are passionately opposed to this? I mean, do you get opposition from developers who say, hey, this is stealing my job, or people who don't want to work in this? And how do you deal with that? What's your
uh,
response?
it's still exceptional for this moment, but I believe it depends on the organization, on the openness that you can find. So we have in this area. But yes, it can be a difficult question. Nobody wants to be useless. But what happens is with great technical stuff, they focus on the right aspects. They think more about the solution architecture of their system instead of small problems that they usually do when they code. So they do this faster. They address the right questions, and they will code there where they bring much more value to their customer. When they need to personalize something, they need something which is not available already. So
Interesting. I
they,
think Christelle has a question for you, Cornel.
yeah, should.
I do. I'm gonna read it as it is on the comments. The question is how to find optimal rate between new technologies with their advantages and risks and existing skills in new project design.
I will try to understand to say that again. So it's about the balance of when to change the technology, when to evolve it, and when to keep it for more time. Is this the? Can you
Maybe
repeat
you
the
can
question?
read it again. I
Yeah,
think
I
the
can.
question was a little fragmented in the way it
Yes,
was written.
yeah, it's a long question. I can say it again. How to find optimal rate between new technologies with their advantages and risks and existing skills in new project design.
Okay. So um, this is not a question about low code, but technology in general. And then again, you need to be conscious about where you need to innovate. If you are selling books online, using the latest best technology out there is not necessarily in your interest. You should not be too late behind because this increases the risks, securities, and many aspects. There are many risks. But being an early adopter doesn't help you. So I'd say the first thing you need to be conscious about is what are you doing? What is the business about? Where do you usually innovate? Then, when you change technologies, it's always a choice between benefits or risks and how you handle these risks, right? You shouldn't change a technology just to change it. Now, it's almost implicit today in terms of decision making that if you are lagging too far behind, you might shoot your enterprise. I'm going to give you an example. If you look at mobile applications, when you build a mobile application, in 1 year, you have at least some minor changes that you need to do to your application, and it has only 1 year. In 2 years, sometimes it's a miracle, it still works. And it's you who build the application, because everything around is moving, right? There are all these pieces and bits that move around, and you need to keep pace with that. If not, your application will not work, because the APIs it was using, they are not there anymore. It's not secured anymore. People found vulnerabilities and they will hack your system. It might not be in their way yet. So there are so many good reasons not to accumulate too much technical debt. And I will add only one thing to that. So sometimes when you take the poor decisions and you go fast, you just get further and further from your goals, right? So what does it mean? We have this tendency of going fast. We start and we build a new application, a new system, a new product. But in our roadmaps, we don't have, I've tested these new features, it's a new product, and if it doesn't work, we will close it in 2 quarters. Because closing it, it's a lot of effort. So when you do this, and when you say, what are the total cost of ownership of these new features that we build? And you say, I need to maintain all that. When you do this, you are much more careful when you say, what features do we really need to build? Because it will be pretty expensive if they don't work to close them, shut them down, right? So this is a product governance as a whole, but also in your strategy, because if you do the governance right and you see that you have these and these issues, when you act on a roadmap, you will take it into account and say, we are building too many applications. Let's think a bit more before doing all this waste, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to answer to this balance, but I will try to summarize it. First, where do you innovate? Be conscious about that. Second, whatever you build is temporary. You should close it, put it in your roadmap, right? And upgrading, maintaining it, it should be in your roadmap already. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks. I just have one more question that I see on the side. Can you define your own methods in a low-code platform? So going back to the subject.
Yeah. So this is a low-code question. Thank you. And so I enjoy talking, so I don't mind about the question. So about can you repeat the question again? Great. Yeah. So you will easily find after your first proof of concept with low code that there are some patterns in applications that you build and systems. You have new applications, small applications, when you just want to fill in the gaps in a process which is not automated. That's one. And it becomes a standard. You say, I will just allocate this kind of effort, and this is how we close it, this is how it will work, and so forth. This is how we started, and we end it, and so forth. Then you would say, I have legacy systems, and this is how it works. And you usually have 5-6 patterns like this, and you need to put them in context and say, how do you manage these priorities? Who's going to handle them? But the most important aspect of it is the governance. And it's the most challenging one. Where are the areas where you should do low code more? And you should stop what you are doing to decrease cycle time, for example, or to better manage technical debt, or to if you don't have governance, in place, or the right governance, when governance means you speak about the efficiency of what happened, not what needs to be happened. If you don't have that, don't speak about low code. Do governance first. So look at what you are building, ask the right questions, and low code will be in the toolkit for how to address that. That's the first thing, governance. Then take care of your infrastructure. The infrastructure is contextual, and it will, depending on that, you will favor some low code options compared to others. For example, if you are in Salesforce environment, just build there. Don't start anything else. Build on top of Salesforce. If you are in a Microsoft environment, Azure, just use Power Suite with Power Apps and Flow. So all that. But the key here is not resources, not skills. You acquire them very well and fast, small learning curve, but the governance. Governance about processes and data, right? Do this better, and low code will help you in these regards, right? Make sense?
It does. Thank you. That's it for my questions. Thank you, Peter. You're on mute. I can see it on the side. Thank you, Cornel. Bye.
Thanks, Christelle.
Okay, Cornel, thank you very much. That it really is very interesting way to learn how to use what you were calling a capability, not just a tool, but it's a low code as a capability, a way to be able to do things no matter what platform or environment you're in or what your needs are. It's a way of thinking. So I hope our users have enjoyed this. There's plenty more information on low code all over the internet, and we will be back after a couple of minutes of music. We'll be back in a minute with Aurelia Tudor, who is going to talk to us about recruiting and HR in the remote era. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Christelle.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Well, hello, and for those of you who stayed here, welcome back. And for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome. This is Pentalog from Pentalog, where we bring you discussions about tools and techniques that you can use not only to survive, but to thrive in the COVID-19 era. This is Peter Green in New York, and I'm here with Aurelia Tudor, who is coming to us from Bucharest, where she runs an organization or a company called, sorry, I'm going crazy, Skill Value. Sorry, I've been doing too much here today. I have the wrong piece of paper in front of me. Sorry. SkillServe, which is SkillServe?
No, it's Skill Value. Hello to everybody.
Hi. And a Skill Value, and it's the HR recruiting arm of Pentalog. And most of what Aurelia has been doing has been remote, so she's got a lot of information and observations to bring to people who may now be trying to build a team remotely or offshore their work and wonder, how do I know that the people they're finding for me who exist only on a computer screen are real and interesting and capable of doing the job, and most of all will get along with my team and understand my needs. So Aurelia, thank you. Tell us a little bit about recruiting. I mean, what changes when you can't actually meet the job candidates?
Hello, Peter. Hello to everybody. A lot of things change when you can't meet the candidate, but what really change actually or what needs to change, it's your mindset. Because if we are speaking about a remote process, or if we are speaking about a recruitment process, the process will be the same. Meaning that the process itself, if you had 4 interviews in a face-to-face process, you will still have 4 interviews in a remote process. What changes is our feelings about it and our fears to take a decision where we are online, where we are not meeting the person in face-to-face, in a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that really at the core of it? You know, when we make decisions about people we want to work with, we we're talking not just somebody who can do a job, but somebody we'd like to feel good about. We want to, if we're working in an office with that person, we don't want to spend 8 or 10 hours a day being miserable, personally and socially miserable. We'd like it to be a better experience. We want to be able to see eye to eye, to have conversations, to not have to be on guard all the time. And yet, when you deal with someone remotely, it's a very two-dimensional experience. So, tell me a little more about how that works. How do you make, how do you understand a candidate when they're just sitting in front of you in a remote interview and you can't gauge their reactions, their humor, their bad breath?
I agree with you that being in front of a camera gives us a sentiment of distance. So it's a little bit harder to take a decision and to see if the candidate that we have in front of us may be the right fit for me, for my team, for my company, and so on. So what we are trying to do, it's by digitalizing the process, it's to try to use different methods in order to be more objective. And in the end, being more objective, I would say that we can recruit better because we are not subjective. When we are seeing the candidate in face-to-face, sometimes we tend to take a decision, or most of the time, we take a subjective decision. So actually what I propose is to redefine the way that you are doing the interview itself. So maybe to try to approach different interview and to use at the same time a scoring system that will allow you at the end to compare your candidates to see which candidates it's more good or for your organization and for your.
So what do you score people on? And how is that different when you're doing it remotely than when they would be coming in for an interview?
Actually, the scoring system, it's something that you can use in face-to-face and you can use remotely. We are talking a little bit more now about this scoring system because it brings a little bit more objectivity and reassure ourselves that we can take the decision and hire the candidate, because this is the problem, taking the decision and reassuring ourselves in this process. So what I propose, it's actually building a scorecard. What I call a scorecard, it's a tool that allows us to collect quantitative and qualitative data following the interview. So by building a scorecard, I'm meaning better defining the need with my client or my internal hiring manager. In the same time, it's defining, when I'm speaking about defining the need, it's really see what are the mandatory competencies that I look for. So the must-have of my candidates. And why I'm speaking about mandatory and must-have, because I always define with my client what I call a minimum viable candidate. It means the core competencies that a candidate must have in order to be able to do the job. And we list these competencies together with my client. We for sure, we define also the nice to have skills. So the pluses that the candidate may have. But the process of defining the minimum viable candidate with his pluses helped me in this process to better understand the client need, but in the same time to set his expectation. And why I'm speaking about setting his expectation, as a recruiter, I always receive a job description with a lot of criteria and a lot of criteria. And I know that in the market, this type of profile doesn't exist. So I try to really see which is the need, what is the need, and to see how could I answer quicker to my client and find a tailored solution for him. We are in a really competitive market, so we really need to understand, to act quickly, and to define a set of core competencies to recruit today. And this is a part actually of building a scorecard. So I define the needs, I list all the competencies, and I, for each competencies, I see which one is mandatory and which one it's a nice to have in order to better understand the profile and to recruit quicker.
So I guess part of that is not setting yourself too much of a limit on your expectations, because even if you're interviewing these people remotely and they're just two-dimensional objects on a screen, they still are people who may have capabilities that haven't been tested yet, or they just don't bother to mention that they also know how to do X, you know.
Yes.
And so they may not look on paper perfect, but as you talk to them, how do you draw them out? What's your strategy for building the kind of rapport you need to draw out a client, an interviewee, I mean?
Okay, for the interview itself, I first of all define, as I said, with my client the scorecard. So that means listing all the needs, defining an expected level for each skill. And what I mean by expected level, I use, for example, Dreyfus scale for the evaluation. So it's defining a rating system. So I expect to have an intermediate PHP developer. So his mandatory skills will be PHP 7 and object-oriented programming, let's say. So I will define level 3 for this skill. After that, I will also give weight for each skill based on the profile that I already defined. And I also list a lot of questions for each skill. This is the creation of the scorecard that I do before the interview. During the interview, I use the scorecard, but during the interview, I really pay attention to the conversation. I don't question the candidates, and I just putting my questions. I'm integrating my questions in the interview. I'm using actually a semi-structure, what it's called in the HR, a semi-structured interview. So I'm integrating my question in the conversation in order to see what are the candidate capabilities, who he is as a person, and in the same time, I need to sell my job. So at the end, we have a conversation in the remote interview. It's a conversation that has a base, that has some predefined questions, but the way that we are integrating in the speech this question make this feel natural and gives room for the candidate to express himself, and to give you all the insights that you may need.
Huh. Wow, that's interesting. I think Christelle, our producer in Brittany, has a question for us from France.
Yes.
Go ahead, Christelle.
Yes, I do. We have a question in the comments. Is the demand for candidates changing right now in the IT world because of what's happening with the COVID or any other reason? Like, is it changing currently?
If we are speaking about the numbers of demands, no. This is not changing. We still have the same number of demands. What is changing? It's actually the type of profiles that we are recruiting in this moment. Before COVID, we were recruiting a lot of developers, PHP, Java, a lot of developers. Now we recruit more database administrators, security analysts, security engineers, and system administrators. So a lot of profiles that are more on the infrastructure part that assure that all of us, we can work remotely and we can work in a safe way remotely without being hacked and so on.
And because of the current crisis and situation, do you feel like people are asking more like for senior level? Like, is there a change in the level that is requested, or?
Yes, people are asking more about seniors, but this is a small change because before COVID, we also recruited mostly senior profiles. Now, yes, it's true that the expectations are higher because meeting the person remotely, sometimes you set the expectation higher to reassure yourself that this profile will be the right profile for your company. So yes, we are looking for senior profiles, and I think 90% of our demands are senior profiles.
And just to finish with
So
my questions really quick, is it better to do
Yes.
yeah,
is it better to do a remote recruiting in the end? And if yes, why?
Yes, it is better because actually it adds speed to the process. Um, we are on a market that is highly competitive, and it's a market where it's a candidate-driven market. It's not a company-driven market. So in order to recruit, you need to be fast. An IT guy has 3 offers on the table in 1 week. So you really need to add speed to your process. And the remote recruitment does that. It adds speed to your process because the candidate it's available. It may be available today or tomorrow. He don't need to commute, so to come to a face-to-face interview. So it involves less time from his side, so he can be available sooner. Your client too, he can also be available sooner. So it adds a lot of speed to the process. And I look at the data from April, and we used to recruit 1 person in 3.5 weeks. Starting March, I see that it's to recruit 1 people in 1.5, 2 weeks. This is the average now. So it adds speed, so it's better to do the process remotely.
Thank you.
Alina,
Thank
just
you.
to put Aurelia, just put some of this in perspective. We were talking about the leverage that the prospective employee has in the game because they often get many offers. You were talking with me the other day about just the number of jobs that are available for developers and compared to the much smaller number of developers out there,
Yes.
particularly in the United States.
In the United States and all over the world, it's the same in Europe. Yes, the developers are really hunted, and I can say hunted. And as a developer, as I said also to Christelle, you receive a lot of offers. For example, even if you don't look for a job and you have a LinkedIn profile, and you have some technology, not a developed, so not really a CV on LinkedIn, so just some info, and your job title it's Java developer or security analyst or things that are related to IT, you will receive around 10 invitations to new companies or to change your job from recruiters daily.
Wow.
So it.
You know what? That's not
It's
happening
really
in
a tough
journalism.
market.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. This is not happening in the HR either.
That's really interesting. But what do you do? We were talking about the incentives that you have to offer prospective employees to make them want to stay with you. That
Yes.
that they have a lot of developers in particular have an image of themselves as doing something kind of new and exciting and cutting edge. And you have to play to that. Is that as easy to do remotely as it is directly? And how do you do that?
I think this process doesn't change. The developers aim to be intellectually challenged. They like to solve puzzles. They are always looking to work with the latest technology, and they are interested about the product they developed, how this product maybe contributes to the world. So you really need to sell your product, the business. And also, it's really important during the interview to present them how they can evolve, how they can develop their competencies. So during an interview, you really need to sell your opportunity, and not just during the interview. During the whole process, from screening the candidate to the recruitment, you really need to sell your opportunity, to try to understand what he is looking for, and to sell the company culture that you have. You really need to offer them the whole package, that it's not just salary. They are well paid, all of them. So you really need to be able to explain them what is in your company there for them, what is their challenge from a technical point of view.
So let me get more fundamental questions about why offshoring is a good idea for tech companies. And I'm guessing one of the things that's happening now is that with all this remote stuff, with companies from Facebook and Twitter to others saying work at home, it really doesn't matter which country the person's working from home in. So if you're an IT manager, CIO, CTO, et cetera, and you're looking for, you're reinventing yourself in the post-COVID-19 world, offshoring is what? What are the advantages there? Is it a cost advantage, or is it a skills advantage, a mobility, agility advantage? What's the...
Okay, first of all, for example, one of Pentalog main stops, it's Romania and Moldova and Vietnam as well. We have very good developers in Romania. So one of the advantage, and we are known in the world for that. So one of the advantages is the skill and the quality of the skill. We really have good developers. We have good universities that prepare these developers for the professional life. Another one, it's the cost. A salary in Romania is 3 times lower than the one in the United States. So it will cost you 3 times less to work with someone from Romania, for example. So the cost, it's another thing. And I'm coming back to the skill because when I'm speaking about the skill, I have some inside info, and we in Skill Value we have some inside info because we have a testing platform. It's actually a technical testing platform. We have over 600 technical tests that allows developers for all over the world to test themselves, and we have built a community of around 400,000 members that have passed around, 2 million tests on our platform. So we have a solid benchmark, and we are making each year a top of the countries with developers. And last year, for example, Romania scored better than France and other European countries that have a tradition, let's say, in this field and have good universities. So the skill, it's really, really good. So the competencies that developers have here in Romania, it's good, and the price, it's also good. I think also in Romania we still have room to recruit, and we are able to recruit quicker than we do it in United States.
So if a company sees, well, this is great to recruit people in Romania, is it better for them to recruit by themselves, to use you to recruit, or to use you to assemble teams that you've recruited that then work for them, with you guys, with an offshoring company like yourself or any other managing the team. What are the challenges and what's the advantage to having an offshoring manager managing the team?
The advantage is that you have someone that cares for the team and that it's here to solve all the problems of the team. And in Agile, what we call the manager of the team, it's the Scrum Master. So it's really good to have a local Scrum Master that cares for the team. So in terms of managing the team in Romania or in another country that you will build your team, it's really good to have a manager on site that will take care of the team, that will assure that all the processes are in place and so on. So it's good to have a manager on site, but this manager needs to have a good contact with the client and needs to really be close to the client. This is about the managing the team. About recruiting the team, if they must to recruit themselves the team, if they need to make appeal to skill value and skill value recruit for them, or Pentalog recruit for them, I think it's better, even if it's skill value Pentalog or it's in another country, they decide to outsource in another country, I think they need to use a local agency that really knows the market, that has a good database, and that can answer to their need quickly. It's difficult if tomorrow I start to recruit on a new market, knowing how the IT market is in the world. It will be really difficult for me to build a team in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, for example. And in Pentalog and Skill Value, we have the capacity to build a team in 3 weeks, for example.
Okay. So ultimately, what's, just to sum up the difference, is there any difference in how COVID and working more remotely has changed the way the recruiting process works for IT?
As a recruitment agency, we are using remote recruitment for years now. I think 2 years now. So for me, it doesn't change. For my clients, yes, it's changing because they need to change their mindset and they need to have the courage to take the decision based on an online conversation. And we are here to help them develop the tools to be able to take, let's say, a more data-driven decision and a more objective decision through a remote recruitment process.
Wow. Well, Aurelia, thank you very, very much for joining us. I hope this was useful to our listeners. For those of you who aren't tired of learning how you can survive and even thrive in the post-COVID-19 world, we will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. with Jeff Mignon. Jeff is the Chief Growth Officer for Pentalog's U.S. operations, and he's going to be talking with us about... remind me, sorry, my brain is not working here. Oh, yes. He's going to be talking to us about growth sprints and how you integrate your entire team and your entire company as you create new products, and how you make sure that you do this efficiently and quickly so that you can adapt to all the different things coming at you and beat the competition, but without spending tons of money on long-term projects that may shift off course as the world evolves. So it's actually pretty interesting. Jeff is a wonderful conversationalist, just like Aurelia and Cornel have been today. And I think those of you who want to learn more should be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This is Peter Green in New York with Pentalog from Pentalog. Thank you to Aurelia Tudor in Bucharest and Christelle Lazo in Brittany. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.